This has been a very eventful week for the Buffalo Sabres. Jack Eichel returned. They played in the Heritage Classic. Joe DiBiase is here from Locked On Sabres to talk about that and what to expect at the trade deadline. All that coming up on the Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL podcast. And thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. It's my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Sabres, Joe DiBiase. And Joe, how you doing?
Gil, I'm doing great. It's a great week to be a Sabre fan, so hope you're doing well as well.
I am doing well, and yeah, what a week it was for the Sabres. Let's get started with the Heritage Classic, big outdoor game on Sunday, and the Sabres come away with the win. Your thoughts on the atmosphere and what it was, it was like for the Sabres to be a part of this game.
Yeah, it was a great game. I thought back and forth affair. The Leafs are a nice challenge for the Sabres because while they don't have the talent to be competitive yet, they're young and they're hoping that the pieces on the team now will grow into that. Don Granato, the Sabres head coach, wants to play an up and down style of hockey. He wants to play a high event style of hockey. And whenever they play the Leafs, it's a great challenge for the young guys because I think the Leafs play the style of hockey that the Sabres want to eventually play, which is go for it, scoring chances, take risks. And they've done very well. I mean, this is 2 times in the last week that they've beaten the Leafs by 3 or more goals. So I think it was a great type of game. The Sabres scoring their goals. The Leafs got their chances as well. Craig Anderson, a good game. And you had some side effects, to that of you had the Rasmus Dahlin, Auston Matthews going at it late in the game that causes a cross-check by Auston Matthews to Dahlin's neck that I already know. I think I saw Chris Johnson from Sportsnet maybe tweeted that the Department of Player Safety is going to look at it. And then what happens from there? It's, there's Dylan Cousins standing up for his teammate and taking a run at Matthews with 1.5 minutes to go. Nothing filthy, maybe the shoulder to shoulder. At least he was going for the shoulder. Maybe he made contact with his elbow. But like that's camaraderie. That is a team coming together. And that is what you want to see from a group of young players is your star defenseman gets cheap shotted, do something about it. And they did. So the game was entertaining and you had all of that extracurricular. And like, you know what, to be honest, Gil, the Sabres have not had a lot of enemies. And listen, it's negative energy, but it gives you some energy to be a fan of, all right, I've got these villains. Eichel is going to become one, has become one, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. And now I've got Matthews for that. It's like, all right, Sabre fans want to see Matthews get suspended, and they're now interested in that. So just to have anything interesting with this team right now, even if it is in a negative context of hating someone else on another team, Matthews gave you a little of that tonight in this game.
Yeah, and when it's a division rival, you're going to see him a bunch every year for the next few years, so bring it, right?
Yeah, Eichel's different because it's Vegas, but you're right. Matthews, they're going to play him 3-4 times a year, and God forbid the Sabres ever get good. You could see him in a playoff series. So yeah, I would love to see a rivalry develop where Matthews becomes a hated figure here in Buffalo. They haven't been good enough yet for that to really develop, but now that the team's starting to play a little bit better, you're seeing the warning smoke of that. Of, okay, if the Sabres get good, this fan base will explode, and all that hate that we haven't been able to exert on division rivals for 10 years, it's going to all come at once towards the Auston Matthewses of the world.
Your thoughts about Hamilton as a site and the neutral site outdoor game?
I thought it was awesome. I love Hamilton. I live just 20 minutes north of Buffalo, and Hamilton's probably about an 1.5-hour drive for me, so nothing crazy, just right across the border. Whenever I got to go to IKEA, I'm heading over there because there isn't one here. And I love Hamilton. It's kind of Buffalo-esque. It's bigger than Buffalo even. It's kind of got that. It's a big city, but it's not like a huge city type vibe to it. And they love hockey there. I mean, they almost got the Coyotes. 15 years ago when an owner tried to bring him there, but it got blocked by the league. I mean, for obvious reasons. I don't think the Leafs were going to be very happy with that. Sabres too. The Sabres have a lot of season ticket holders from the Hamilton and Southern Ontario area.
Sure.
So I thought it was an awesome venue. They haven't really, that's a huge hockey market. Even though they don't have an NHL team, that is a huge hockey market because I think the Sabres have about 20% of their season ticket base that comes from Southern Ontario. And I would imagine that there are also a lot of season ticket holders for the Leafs that come from that area as well. 500,000 people. So I thought it was a good idea to get them an outdoor game. They showed up and they sold the place out. It was great atmosphere, great weather for the game as well. Not too warm, not too cold, mid-20s and snow. So I thought it went as good as you could possibly ask for Hamilton to have a game.
Yeah, no question. I love, and the snow was just sort of the icing on the cake. So to speak. But earlier this week, Jack Eichel returning to Buffalo, fireworks ensue, more off the ice perhaps than on,
Yes.
but a nice win for the Sabres and a little revenge there.
Oh, for sure. The arena was buzzing. I was in that arena for that game on Friday, and I don't think I've heard that place as electric as it was in many years. I mean, this year it's been tough. They've been at about half capacity, even lower on some occasions because, to be honest, one, I just mentioned the Southern Ontario season ticket base. The border's been closed, so that's 20% of your season ticket base that can't even come to your games in the first place. The pandemic hit people hard financially. Oh, and by the way, you are going to set a record this year for the longest playoff drought in NHL history. So team spirit's not super high. And last year, you had no fans because of the pandemic. So it's been more than 2 years since I've seen anything like this, an atmosphere like that at a Sabre game. And they brought it. They booed Eichel every time he touched the puck. They booed him when he showed out for warmups. I will say this, though, and this is why I had a problem with Eichel's comments after the game where he said, I hadn't heard that building that loud in 7 years. Well, one, he's exaggerating. Of course, the building's been that loud in 7 years on certain occasions. But two, it was kind of a needless, unnecessary shot to me. I don't really know what Eichel was expecting in towards of a reception, or of him coming back, what it was going to be like. Because while he got booed every time he touched the puck, when it was time to show gratitude, when it was time to show respect, when the Sabres put the video tribute up in the first TV timeout, it wasn't all cheers. Don't get me wrong. It was a mixed bag. Of course, it was going to be. But I thought it was like 70-30 clapping as opposed to the boos. And for a player that, while he was incredible, and I would never put any of the blame on him for the 6 years that he was here and they didn't come close to making a playoff spot. I mean, you were the face of that era. It's the darkest era in Sabres history. You were the face of it. So I don't know why he was expecting some standing ovation or what he was expecting. And like you would know, Gil, from covering the Islanders, like when John Tavares returned to Long Island, you had there's one chant I probably can't really say on the air here that they were doing. There was the "We don't need you" chant. They got blasted 6-1, I think. I looked that game up the other day, and Tavares didn't take a shot at the fans after the game. Like, I just thought it wasn't that bad. It was booing, but it wasn't so vicious. So I thought it was a low blow that Eichel took to the Sabre fans, and I thought it was completely unneeded. But the building itself that night in the game was awesome to be a part of it.
Yeah, it was electric and a great atmosphere there. Trade deadline is a week away. Quickly, what do you expect Buffalo to do, if anything, at the deadline?
Well, I'm almost glad I was long-winded on the first two there, Gil, because there ain't going to be much happening. I think at the deadline, it's going to be pretty quiet. They'll take care of business. They'll trade their UFAs away because, of course, they're a rebuilding team still, and they're not in a playoff race. So the Colin Millers of the world who are going to be on an expiring contract, maybe Mark Pesic. I think the one guy that's interesting to me is Craig Anderson. Anderson got his 300th win the other night. I have always believed that he came back. He was going to retire. Like, it was out there that he was going to retire after basically not playing at all as Washington's number 3 goaltender last year. Like, he got in that playoff game, if you remember, game 1, and that was like the only action he saw all season. He was going to retire. He didn't. The Sabres said, we've got young guys in the system that aren't ready. We just kind of need a guy to just to kill a year. And when he took that, I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Why would he want to do that? Why would he pass on retirement for that? And my thought was, okay, that's a guy that probably would like to play some games, prove to the rest of the league that he's still an NHL goaltender, and maybe be a guy that could be traded at the deadline for a mid to a late round pick and be some contender's backup goaltender to take one last cup or run at a Stanley Cup ring. So I think Anderson is very interesting because I wonder if he'll get dealt, but nothing major, I would think, for the Sabres at the deadline this year.
All right, Joe, why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Definitely. You could check wherever you're listening to this podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Odyssey, search the Locked On Sabres podcast. You can check us out on all of those apps. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/Locked On Sabres is our YouTube channel. And then if you want to hit us up on social media, get a quicker link to all of those at Locked On Sabres, or I'm on Twitter at Sneaky Joe Sports.
All right, Joe DiBiase, always a pleasure. Great to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, Gil. Anytime.